Coming up on Speedweek, Trans Am victories continue to mount up for the Capris.
Dirt cars rumble on blacktop.
And late models pile up on the pavement in Nashville.
These stories and more coming up on Speedweek.
Is brought to you by B.F. Goodrich, makers of high-performance TA radials. We make cars perform.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Speed Week. I'm Bob Jenkins.
And I'm Larry Newbert. Our program begins this week in the state of Ohio, where a couple of events were held this past weekend.
Larry, the Trans Am cars were in action at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, and two Speed Week reporters covered the event. One, well, you might call him an insider.
As usual, we've got all three of the Motocraft cars up near the front of the grid. But at this particular race, we've got a real surprise for you on pole. Here's Tom Michaels to tell you about it.
Maybe a few weeks ago at Detroit, it was a bit of a surprise that Elliott Ford Robinson won the race with his V6 Buick. But at Mid-Ohio this weekend, even more of a surprise as he's put the car on the pole for this weekend's Trans Am. For the first 10 laps, EFR was the chasee, with the Capris of Willie T. Ribbs and Wally Dallenbach Jr. the closest chasers. Paul Newman made an early pit stop, relegating the actor to non-factor. On lap 10, Ribbs takes the lead, only to break a wheel and puncture a tire, putting him far back. That puts Ford Robinson back up front, Dallenbach taking over on lap 17. He would never be headed, taking his Capri to a second Trans Am win and an increase in his points lead. Ford Robinson would not be challenged for second. Chris Neifel drove a steady race to third despite painful leg cramps. Meanwhile, Willie T. Ribbs fought back from that early stop. He would get by everybody but the first three. Jim Fitzgerald's Nissan was fifth, and defending points champ Loy finished back in eighth.
At the drop of the green flag, it was pretty obvious that we missed the right setup. As the leaders pulled away, I found myself racing in mid-pack. This produced a lot of frustration and a lot of broken fiberglass. The champion is down, but definitely not out.
This was a club racing weekend at Mid-Ohio, but another Pro Series here, the Pro Sports 2000.
Green flag on the long backstretch, and already by the first lap into madness, it was obvious the white number 99 of Lansing, Michigan's Tom Knapp would be tough to beat. Knapp had the lead by lap 2 and surprisingly began to disappear. This was the third race of the series, and up till now, no team had dominated. World War III for second place all race long. 21-year-old Scott Overby, last year's champ, held off the troops for the first half of the race. 8 drivers broke the track record, headed by Canada's Scott Goodyear, who eventually ascended back into second. Steve Blassie, number 10, knocked down third. Dominic Dobson laid in the Super V's fourth, and 83 champ Bill O'Connor fifth.
The Pikes Peak hill climb used to be a yearly win for a member of the Unser family, but it's becoming an annual affair for French rally driver Michel Mouton. Here's a report from Dave Rose.
Michel Mouton's first assault on the tricky 12.5-mile mountain highway that serves as the course for America's second oldest auto race came in 1984. Mouton and Team Audi won the rally division, but missed the all-time record, which was set by Al Unser Jr. in an open-wheeler in '83. This year, Team Audi gave Mouton an even more powerful four-wheel drive Quattro, and in spite of some of the worst track conditions in race history, Mouton shaved 13 seconds off the record, getting to the 14,000-foot summit in 11 minutes, 25.39 seconds. Mouton's new record was the biggest story in the race, but it wasn't the only story. Roger Mears from Bakersfield, California, set a new stock car record in his '84 Camaro. Mears got to the summit in a bank of fog, but his time was 12 minutes, 21.54 seconds, 26 seconds better than the previous stock car record. From Colorado Springs, this is Dave Rose reporting.
Other winners at the peak, John Crawford driving an '85 Daytona in the production rally division, and Bob Register driving a Coyote in open wheel.
In our next segment, USAC dirt cars on pavement in Indy.
And NCRA dirt cars in action in Tulsa. Stay with us. Our Crown Champ dirt cars ran on pavement at Indianapolis Raceway Park Saturday night. Racing began this Saturday night with a 25-lap qualifying race. Gary Irvin went inside in turn 1, smoked the tires, and beat Steve Chassis and Jack Howdenshield.
The story in the 150 lapper was tires. Rich Vogler was fastest qualifier and pole sitter in his black number 29 and led the first 42 circuits before blistering a tire. That gave the lead to Ken Schrader, yes, the regular NASCAR driver who returned to open wheels for this one. Kramer Williamson had a tire blow in his number 21 of Fixco. Then, shortly after the restart, Schrader also has a tire go flat, and Billy Englehart assumed command for a while. Rick Hood in the yellow number 39, making only the third pavement start of his career, then led, but was passed by Larry Rice. But he, too, had to make a pit stop for tires, and Hood, who took it easy, conserved tire wear and played it cool, beat Schrader, Dave Blaney, Rice, and Gary Bettenhausen.
Oklahoma continues as the only state running championship dirt cars, other than USAC, on an almost weekly basis.
The one big difference, Wing's traditional champ dirt cars are open cockpit. Last week in Tulsa, NCRA conducted its last warm-up before resuming its special series with the USACers. What started out as a competitive race turned out to be a cakewalk for Howie Sewell, number 3.
Well, we weren't doing too real good the first start of the race, and they had a pretty bad accident and caused a complete restart with a red. During the red, we had a chance to adjust the car, and it made all the difference. We weren't going too real good until that adjustment.
USAC and NCRA will resume their Challenge Series this weekend in Oklahoma City. Last time these two sanctioning bodies got together was in Tampa, Florida last February. In the Saturday Challenge race, Rich Vogler flipped over the guardrail in turn 2 but was uninjured. Jack Hewitt went on to win. The next day, Tom Bigelow took this ugly tumble in the 50-lap salute to Judd Larson. George Snyder won that race in the Rose Brothers car, the one that Rick Hood now drives.
In midgets, Nick Noki Fenoro is hotter than a July night in the East, and in the Midwest, one of the starters of this year's Indianapolis 500 remains the man to beat.
We ran the car last night at the Speedrome and won the race and didn't have any problems, so we decided to come over and run for a little Skull money tonight.
Friday, across the state line in Taylorville, Illinois, it took until lap 16 for him to take the lead from J.R. Miller. Terry Wente in the number 2 Skull Bandit was second, followed by Steve Knepper, J.R. Miller, and Steve Enlow. The points after 6 of the 10 races, J.R. Miller 104, Kevin Doty defending champion, Steve Knepper, and Terry Wente and Steve Enlow tied for 4th.
The Michigan 500 for Indy cars is this Sunday. Tom Sneva thinks it could be a repeat of last year when millions of dollars of equipment was destroyed in a wreck-marred event.
Well, I don't believe they've done anything to the racetrack as far as to smooth it out or do anything. It's very difficult to do that in lieu of paving the whole facility. And the winter, I don't think, was any better to the track than any other winter. So the racetrack's still going to be in tough shape. It's the same for everybody, but it's a fast racetrack. It did cause us some trouble last year, and the guys are just going to have to use their head a little bit and maybe not get that close to the ragged edge to stay out of trouble.
Sneva is pleased with the new kart rule changes for 1986, but says they don't go far enough.
Sprint car driver Sammy Swindell will drive the number 20 STP Patrick March at Michigan and admits the paved high banks are a far cry from the dirt short tracks.
The cars behave somewhat similar. Everything more or less kind of relates to each other, but the only thing at Michigan is the speed. Going so fast there that and the race is 500 miles. I haven't been that far yet, so those are the only things that kind of maybe bother me a little bit, or I may have a little bit of trouble just because I don't have the experience yet, but we all have to start somewhere.
Sammy ran several practice laps at Michigan in excess of 208 miles an hour. A few weeks ago, we showed you the garages at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway being torn down. Well, the demolition process is now complete, and this is what Gasoline Alley looks like now. Construction of the new garages will begin soon and will be completed by next spring.
Coming up next on the West Coast, motorcycle poetry on blacktop.
And on the East Coast, the violent brutality of motocrossing. The AMA pavement races at Laguna Seca attracted America's top riders who had been competing around the world this season. Plus, one other rider, Tim O'Leary reports.
The king of motorcycle racing, Kenny Roberts, ended his one-year retirement to race in the Formula One Champion Sparkplug 200. And in the first heat, it looked like he'd never been gone. Roberts and Randy Mamola on bike number 5 took turns leading the race, putting on an incredible display of equipment and talent, pulling wheelies down the main straightaway at more than 120 miles per hour. With 9 laps to go in the first heat, Roberts began to pull away. He took the checkered flag by averaging just under 99 miles per hour. Mamola finished second, and veteran Formula One road racer Mike Baldwin finished third. In the second heat, Roberts and Mamola resumed their head-to-head duel and rattled off several near-record laps until Roberts' bike developed a gearbox problem on the 17th lap. It slowed him down, and Mamola pulled way out in front, winning the second heat by 11.5 seconds. Mamola's 2-1 finish in the 2 heats gave him his third Sparkplug 200 victory and put a damper on King Kenny's return to racing.
I looked about the 10th lap, and Kenny was leading it, and then I got by him, and I knew he was having a little bit of problem, but he was still hanging in there for a while. And then he held 2 seconds, he got 1 second, and then I had 2 seconds, and then I noticed that he had the big problem, and then I think he just gave up with like 2 or 3 laps to go.
Roberts said he felt great during the race and was disappointed a mechanical failure cost him his 8th win at Laguna. Mike Baldwin finished third overall and picked up 13 points to move into first place in the Formula One road race standings. From Laguna Seca Raceway, Tim O'Leary reporting for Speedweek.
Canadian Miles Baldwin finally replaced Rich Schlachter and Wayne Rainey in Formula 2's Victory Lane. Florida's John Ashmead won the Superbike race, while established dirt tracker Jim Felice was second. Doug Chandler built on his Grand National points lead, now 10 ahead of Bubba Schobert.
Jay Chapman reports on a big day for Team Honda at the 250cc Grand Prix of Motocross.
Unadilla, New York, the 8th race in the 250 World Championship Series. This is the event where the Europeans were expected to clean up. It didn't happen. Americans dominate the action. In the first moto, the battle is between the Honda teammates, the veteran Bob Hurricane Hanna, and the kid Johnny O'Mara. O'Mara has the lead, but he gives way to the Hurricane 35 minutes in, and Hanna goes on to win the first moto. In the second moto, the heat and humidity start to take their toll on the riders. That, along with the fact that Unadilla is one of the toughest courses on the circuit. Again, the strong ride is Honda. Hanna has buried some 30 spots back in the pack, but he moves up and finishes 5th. Meanwhile, Johnny O'Mara, riding Unadilla for the first time, he's setting fire to the course. He builds an unbelievable margin of 30 seconds over the field at the finish. With the second and the first place finishes, O'Mara takes the win, beating the Europeans and the course. From Unadilla, New York, for ESPN Speedweek, I'm Jay Chapman.
Speedway Bikes, the Coors Western night at the Orange County Fairgrounds in Costa Mesa, California. The night is a bad one for defending national champion Kelly Moran. The toe on his shoe gets caught in the dirt, throwing him from the bike. A visit to the hospital reveals only a sprained ankle. The handicapped main event went to Alan Crazy Christian, who held off a late charge by Jim Lawson. And the scratch main led flag to flag by Robert Fetzing, his second scratch main victory of the year.
They call it Thunder on the Snake, the Western Inboard Divisional Championships on the Snake River near Clarkston, Washington.
The course is 1.25 mile oval. This is what the ski jet division looks like from the spectator's point of view. This is driver Kevin Austin, and this is what it looks like from his viewpoint. Watch closely as pro comp driver Doug Meissner attempts to pass, but the boat flips wildly, throwing the driver clear. Meissner was uninjured. Jamie Jamison raced on to first place.
The pictures from that inboard championship were made by a company called the Vision Group. The president of that company, Steve Freed, unexpectedly died of a heart attack earlier this week. Steve's company was also responsible for the in-car camera that you may have seen many times on ESPN during our NASCAR races. He was a friend of all of us connected with Auto Racing 85. We'll miss his energetic and untiring attitude toward work, but more than that, his smiling face and caring attitude toward people. He took the time to make you smile.
Weekend Grand National races resume this Sunday with the Summer 500 from Pocono that you can see live here on ESPN at 1 o'clock. Several NASCAR drivers were in Nashville, Tennessee last weekend for an ASA race.
It didn't take long for things to start happening after Alan Kulwicki grabbed the lead at the start. On the second lap, this 13-car pileup in turn 1 eliminated 4 cars, including that of Darrell Waltrip. It was basically a contest between Kulwicki and Mike Alexander for the first 164 laps. Retirees included Joe Ruttman with transmission problems, Bobby Allison with engine trouble, and Mark Martin also with a broken transmission. Alexander was leading on lap 164 when his car slowed on the backstretch. Then, with just 21 laps to go, Kulwicki's engine expires, giving the lead for the second time in the race to Butch Miller. Butch finished a lap ahead of Dick Trickle, Bobby Dotter, Harold Fair, and Mike Eddy. Fair and Eddy came back from their involvement in that second lap crash. The latest ASA point standing shows Kulwicki on top, followed by Trickle, Miller, Seneker, and Mark Martin. The second 5, Mike Eddy, Harold Fair, Bobby Dotter, Jim Sauter, and Bill Stevenson.
Bobby Allison is officially out as the driver of Dygard's Grand National car. He and the team mutually cited philosophical differences, and he was allowed to prematurely end his contract. Both will race this week at Pocono with reorganized teams. The differences came to a head when the second Dygard car won at Daytona with Greg Sachs driving. He will be the Dygard driver for the rest of this season. Dygard and Miller will continue to assist the Allison short track program for both Bobby and his son, Davey.
Dick Trickle, who finished second in Nashville Saturday night, was en route to another race on Sunday at Kaukauna, Wisconsin, when his private plane hit a pole while attempting to land on a drag strip. Trickle was uninjured, then dropped out of the race at Wisconsin International Raceway with engine problems. Mark Martin was the winner.
In other stock car results, Freddie Fryer and Rusty Wallace shared the spotlight in the $80,000 All-Pro Auto Parts Spectacular. Ed Haig won his second straight ARCA race at Flat Rock, Michigan in another Oldsmobile V6, and at Thompson, Connecticut Speedway, Randy LaJoie checkered the NASCAR North race.
In Winston West, Herschel McGriff started from the pole and registered his second win of the season. The next Winston West race is at Evergreen Speedway in Monroe, Washington, a 500-lapper. That'll be the first 500-lapper since Oakland in the 1940s. Bill Elliott could be there. NASCAR officials are reportedly considering Evergreen as a replacement for the Riverside Grand National race. The team of Hans Stuck and Derek Bell in a Brofmans Porsche 962 won the WEC race at Hockenheim, West Germany. The race was marred by a pit fire that critically injured Rothman's racing engineer Norbert Singer. Engine expert Helmut Schmidt was also hospitalized, and 4 other mechanics were treated for burns. There will be a 2-car Lowenbrow team for the IMSA race at Portland. Derek Bell will drive the car that's competed all year. The other will be a 962 driven by Al Holbert. That car has been built in Holbert's Warrington, Pennsylvania shops.
NHRA Englishtown, New Jersey. This massive fire after Bob Newberry exploded a blower through his windshield at 200 miles per hour top alcohol funny car. He had just lost to Frank Manzo, but both drivers unhurt. Pro Stock Final, Butch Leo, here for the 3rd time in the last 5 races, against the 34-year-old pro rookie Bruce Allen, who continues his fairy tale year, winning for the 3rd time. Pro Funny, this is Kenny Bernstein's year. Second quickest run in history, finals for the 6th straight time, but Tim Gross only loses by 0.03 of a second. 23-year-old Darrell Gwynn has made it to the final face-off in only his 6th start ever. Don Garlett's 53, the legend, is confident. A good race, but another win for Big Daddy.
Here's this week's trivia question. Since it became a separate division in 1971, who has more USAC championship dirt car wins? A. Tom Bigelow, B. Sheldon Kinzer, C. George Snyder, D. Chuck Gurney, or E. Rich Vogler? We'll have the answer in a moment.
Here's the answer to this week's trivia question. A. Tom Bigelow has 6 dirt car wins, more than the others listed. Kinzer, Snyder, and Gurney each have 4. Vogler has 3. Now, Gary Bettenhausen has the most wins in that division, 9.
Well, it rained in much of the eastern half of the country last week, and there was also thunder on the Ohio.
That's the race in Evansville, Indiana. The best start of the year. 6 crossed the line together, but Chip Henauer and Miss Miller American streaked from the middle of the course and sprayed into first.
It was real narrow. Everybody was a little bit early, and the boat just performed flawless. I'd follow this group of guys down the Amazon to the end of the earth. They are just the best going.
He won his 3rd Evansville race in 4 years. Last week's winner, Steve Reynolds, in Miss 7-11, was 2nd.
We have 3 live races this weekend here on ESPN. Saturday at 1:30, an ARCA race from Pocono. Sunday morning at 9:30, the British Grand Prix. Then at 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon, the Grand National race from Pocono. I'm Bob Jenkins.
And I'm Larry Newber. We'll see you next week on Speed Week. We leave you this week with more of the Pikes Peak Hill Climb.
Speed Week has been brought to you by B.F. Goodrich, makers of high-performance TA radials. We make cars perform.